Hey everybody, welcome to my quick video about how to edit raw photos using Affinity Photo. Alright, so this is a portrait I took with my Nikon camera using RAW as the way to save the file. Instead of saving multiple JPEG and RAW, I just do RAW only and develop it here. So a great advantage to that is sometimes you can overexpose or underexpose the picture and get the image back to somewhere that's good. I shot in really bad lighting in this studio, and so I am going to fix some of it after the fact of taking the photo. So with this one, I would mess with the exposure a little bit. Usually you don't mess with exposure when you're doing JPEG, but with RAW you can, so that's the advantage. You can see what it looks like. Way overexposed, and then kind of under back. We're getting the face back to where it should be. So right about there is where I feel comfortable. And so then I'll move on to black points. This will just find the darks a little bit more than what we just did. But we'll go for right about that area. And then brightness. So reducing the brightness. I had only one single light, so I'm trying to capture that. I use no flash and just one light bulb, which I filtered with paper because I'm ghetto. Alright, so moving on. The second part is you can enhance that image a little bit more, adding more contrast and things like that, and I will mess with that usually. When you go left, it seems to add light to the whole image. Don't want that. So going back to where we started, about 0, you can see that going darker isn't ideal either. So I stick with where it was. And there we go. Clarity. So if you go up on the clarity, it is going to highlight and pick up every light or dark and then really exaggerate those, kind of like a mountain range. But going back down, it clarifies and smooths out a lot of things in the face and in the background. So for me, I like it pretty smudged down or smoothed out, so that's far to the left. Saturation is when you go to the left, it turns everything gray or a blue gray. But when you go to where it started, it should represent the skin tone. And so sometimes you have to add a little light to it, but for this one it looks better toned down. Alright. Vibrant, same thing, go to the right, it adds more color, so you might see the lips and skin tone turn a little more orange, or the tree in the back turning a little more green, but it really doesn't have a huge effect. The saturation does more. Okay, so there's white balance. I don't like white balance all the time unless I'm trying to add orange to the skin tone, and I'll show you. If I go right, it will add some oranges to everything. If I go left, it's going to add some coldness. So it's kind of a warm and cool thing. I'm just going to pick that. It looks like the accurate skin tone. Tint, same thing. It's a green, cooling. Doesn't look good. So you try to go back, find your happy place. If you go to the right, it's going to warm it up with some magenta. So I don't need that either. And so we try to go back to where we were. And luckily this is 1%, so it's a little bit easier. I might go 1% magenta. Really does not make a difference there. But if you wanted warmness in the skin, definitely you can mess with the temperature. Okay, shadows and highlights, we've already pretty much done that, but you can always look at it again. If I go to the left, I'm producing more shadows. And I kind of want to see the back of the head a little bit, but not a lot. So we went down a little bit. And this next one's highlights to the far right and shadow. So the shadow flattens the face and removes highlights. And so I want a little bit in there because it's pretty well lit currently. So that added those normal highlights that were there. All right, and so at that point, you're pretty much well developed, and so you can go ahead and click develop. Right now it takes about 10 seconds and develops your picture, and then it will be ready to develop as most people are used to developing with the JPEG image. So it's getting that to there right now. And what still loading a little bit, takes a second or two. All right, so now it's ready. Okay, so there's some things they traditionally might look at. If somebody had a huge zit or a scar that they did not want in the image, they'll sometimes tell you. And so you can go to the healing brush down here. If you hold it, it'll give you other options, but I usually use the healing brush. And using a Mac, you have to push the Alt key to pick the tone you want or the place that the brush will follow. Let's see, let's go right here. And you see this little freckle thing. I don't think I like freckles, so I usually don't remove them. But you can kind of remove it by messing with that. But I do not want that removed, so I'm just going to undo those. Command Z, and I brought it back. There we go. Brought it back. So I usually don't mess with the faces because I like people more natural. But here you go. I mean, everything we've already done is right here. Brightness, contrast, black and white, recolor. We don't need to do that again unless you really want to get into it really well. Some things I like to add is a split toning, and we can look at that. Just to see where your split tone is going to be, I usually add a little, drag the bar over, and you can see the red is being added, turning pink right about there. So that is actually kind of sometimes nice. It's kind of like adding makeup or lighting that you didn't have before. So if you want the cheeks more rosy, you can try that out. But it changes your highlights. So if you don't want a pure white, you're gonna lose some of that. So, and then it also does the same thing with shadow. You're gonna have to change that, and then turn on the shadow. And then you can see what it does. It kind of makes your image look more vintage or old. But you can sometimes, if you pay attention to the background, remembering that it was gray at one point, you can change that as well. So it's kind of interesting. I sometimes like the blue and red combo, changing the whole background. And you can mess with the balance of that. So if I want a little bit of coldness or blue, you can do that, or you can make it warm by adding a little orange or red, and so it just changes the style of your picture. I generally don't always do this, but sometimes I like the effect, and so I kind of like that. I'm just going to leave it. You can merge the two together if you like something. But the last thing I generally do is try to soften the image a little bit more, and I like this soft proofing. So I usually just click the first one. I don't always like this one right up top, but I like the Japanese color ones, and I'll show you the two different ones. This one kind of highlights a little bit of the background, but softens it at the same time. And then when you do uncoded, it really is dramatic. But the way to turn down the drama is mess with the opacity by clicking and dragging it down to somewhere else. I actually don't want that. I'm going to go back to 100%, and I'm going to go with the Japan Color 2001 coded. So these are actually, I don't even exactly know what they are, but you can see that they're web coded. There's US, there's Adobe, there's Apple. So these are just different ways of printing, I'm going to guess, but they actually leave a pretty cool result. It's on absolute color metric, and I like just the 100% of that Japanese coded. You can turn it down, of course. This was what your picture was before, and this is what it is with it, and so you kind of lose. You can get a balance in there, but I like the hair kind of being flattened into the background. So that's why I go with that, and I merge those two together. And that's pretty much my editing process for the most part. Not every time, I do it differently, slightly differently every time, but it really warmed up the picture and made it really smooth. And so that's pretty much where I leave off. Last part is you can just save the file and it'll save the raw image to this new look, or you just need to go to export and click whatever you're trying to save it as, JPEG, GIF, TIFF, whatever. I click JPEG, set it at a high quality. If you want it to be exactly the highest quality, go to the best quality one. High quality is going to save it good enough, 2 megabyte. If you do the best quality, it is 12, so that's a big jump. But that would be full blown if you're wanting to get it on a billboard or something bigger. Go with that. So I export. Boom, and game's over. So that's pretty much how you do it. It'll save it to your wherever you want. And I usually save with an F or an FF. I've already saved this once, so I'm doing 2 Fs. That means it's a finished file or finished. All right, and just save. So that is pretty much it. Thank you for watching, and this is one of my first videos using Affinity Photo, and this is my kind of rookie experience of editing photos from RAW to JPEG finished. And so if you liked it, please follow and give me a thumbs up. And if you have any questions about photography or how to edit using Affinity, let me know in the comments below. Talk to you later.